Welcome to Arts and Music. I'm your host, Victor Janflone. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Mark Reay via Skype from New York City. Welcome to the show, Mark Reay. How's your day been so far? It's been interesting so far
thanks,
for us.
Victor. It's getting better. There's a whole backstory that the viewers of this won't know about, and our technical difficulties and on both ends.
This is true. This is true. Growing up in the Delaware water gap, how was that in shaping your life?
Well, it was a very pastoral experience. I grew up in a house built in 1776.
Oh, wow.
An ancient farmhouse with 5 fireplaces, with plenty of land, plenty of cows, plenty of cats and dogs. But the one thing it didn't have a lot of were people. So there was a lot of solitude in my early years. And then as a teenager, the only cars I could afford were, junkers. And so I kind of made a vow early on that I would give up the countryside and only live in big cities, and the city wasn't big enough if I needed a car. So that's persisted for the last 40 years, where I've mainly lived in cities.
Mm-hmm. How was your recent trip to your mother's? And how is your mother?
Mom's 90. She's always up earlier than I am, 6 o'clock in the morning, tinkering around. And thank you for asking.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, I have a nice connection, well, a very deep connection to my mother. My father has died. My mother and I truly, truly love her. And my brother and sister are out there, and they're very important people in my life, or really ground me and give me that, that sense of family.
So what did you do after you were paid the money to vacate your New York City apartment?
I wanted to be a photographer. I had just taken my first photography classes, and I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to pursue it. So I wanted to go somewhere with my camera that was warm, that had beautiful women, and that I could, take a lot of photographs. So, and I always wanted to go to Rio de Janeiro, so I went to Rio for a month. And it wasn't really that extravagant, but that was my first trip with the money.
With your life on the roof, I have a thing here like under the tarp, late at night. Were your thoughts hard to control at all at times?
Yeah, the way I kind of phrase it is I didn't live on the roof. I lived in New York City, and I slept on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And in most big cities, I imagine it's the same, where people spend relatively little amount of time in their apartment. People can't really afford to entertain, don't have the space to really have a lot of people over to their houses, so that consequently they're meeting at bars and coffee shops and restaurants. So, keeping my thoughts, under control, let's say. I had some bleak experiences well before I started sleeping on the roof, and some really negative thoughts and huge amount of frustrations. And kind of perversely, the roof, one of the ways that I could, to rationalize being a rooftop dweller was by saying, this is what you deserve, you idiot. This is, what else have you done in your life to really have otherwise? So in a way, that negative energy, that negative thought process to survive up there.
Do you think you're being a little bit hard on yourself, though, at times?
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I played basketball in high school. I played a couple years in college as well. Um, and maybe this happens to a lot of people, but I remember my high school coaches always saying, you are your own worst enemy. But I'm sure, you know, I would like to know how many people have heard that before, whether it's a prevalent uh, you know belief.
I think most people are their own worst enemy in the sense. I know I'm hard on myself too. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure many people are the same way.
I feel like I've had a lot of adventures in life, but few achievements. And yeah, I lived in Europe for 4 years and met a lot of great people and lived in San Francisco and Charleston, South Carolina, and all over Europe and now New York City. But at the end of the day, I was still feeling very empty inside because I really hadn't done anything um, of note that you know um, some sort of legacy, creating some sort of legacy.
When did you meet Thomas Wirthenson?
Yeah, so the director, Thomas Wirthenson, well, he wasn't the director until he got done with me. He and I met in Vienna. Oddly enough, most people think that modeling only occurs in these, big
Like
cosmopolitan,
Paris or something? Yeah.
fashion-oriented cities: Paris, London, New York, Milan, maybe Tokyo. Uh, and I discovered that you can actually make ends meet and do okay in some smaller minor markets like Brussels and Barcelona, Madrid, Zurich, and one of the other places was Vienna. This is
Hmm.
right around the time that Helmut Lang was rising. So I was in this agency, and there was this guy a little bit about 5 years younger than me who had some, it's a bit of a character himself, and he had a car, and we used to drive around a lot. And at first, I couldn't remember how to pronounce his name properly, Thomas Wirthenson. So I used to just call him Tom the driver,
Tom the
and that
driver.
became his nickname in the agency, Thomas Driver. So I go like it's so we met and had like a friendship for a year or two, and then the winds blew and we went in different directions, and then we didn't correspond at all. It was pre-internet, and then I went back to model in Europe in 2000, and I wanted to relive all those experiences, that proverbial second chance. So I went back to most of the cities that I had modeled in the 80s, and one of those places was Vienna. And I had no intention really of meeting Tom again because we didn't really end our relationship very cordial. And so, but I went to this gym that was recommended to me by my agency, and I was, literally, and I kid you not, I was doing sit-ups on a mat, and on the mat next to me was a guy, and we just looked at each other, and it was Tom Driver.
That seems fortuitous, or like the Joseph Campbell thing, right? The door opening, in a sense.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. Follow your bliss. Get on a path where unseen hands shall open
open the
doors, aiding
doors.
you on your progress.
Yeah. How did Thomas know of your situation, and when was the decision made for the film?
So that meeting, our second meeting was in 2000, and again we kind of lost contact. Um, he wound up living in San Francisco, this recurring theme, uh, for a while, and then he moved to New York, and somehow, he mentioned he was coming to New York, and he wanted to meet up, and I think that was around 2010, and I'd already been on the roof for 2 years, and so we went to have a couple of drinks, and he asked questions. So, where are you living? I was like, hey, let's have another beer and I'll tell you a story. And I had already thought prior to meeting Tom that my situation would make a great story, whether it was written or filmed. And he was very enthusiastic of making a documentary. So, I say I didn't really trust him as a filmmaker because I don't think he had really done much at all prior to that, but I trusted him as a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So thought we would just, collaborate for a while and see what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And something happened.
How long did it take to film the movie?
Too long. No, we shot very sporadically, sometimes not meeting for a month, and then some days shooting a couple days in a row. And that it took over 2.5 years. Um, I kid Tom thinking, yeah, the reason why you're continuing to shoot is because you're hoping that there'll be a happy ending to my story and you'll become a big success.
Mm.
So maybe that'll be in part two.
What does homeless mean to you?
The title?
The actual title or
Word?
the lifestyle?
Well, I'm gonna, this is kind of the behind the scenes interview, and just like in the '80s when MTV came around, and a lot of bands felt that you shouldn't make a song that gives too much of a literal definition to the lyrics, because you're robbing the viewer of their own experience or interpreting things as they wish, because the visual pretty much mandates a certain perception and understanding.
Why did he choose it as
And again,
HOMMELESS?
I think just because I don't think it had anything really to do with me or the experience uh, that he was filming. It was just maybe uh, something to do with the fashion world, and somebody just registered with him and a few other people as a nice title. And so I kind of like robbed people of doing what I did and trying to justify that title from my experience. And I thought, yeah, it's actually appropriate. I'm a man
Mm-hmm.
who feels inadequate at very often, and so it made a lot of sense, as if I've you know told people the real story of the title, but this is a bare all interview.
Do you know how Tom got Kyle Eastwood involved?
Tom went to hear Kyle Eastwood play, maybe at the Blue Note, and Tom's girlfriend at the time, who's now his wife and the mother of his child, as of the last 3 months, uh, is pretty well connected with the music world and the social scene. And so I think she somehow arranged for Tom to at least get his foot backstage. And then Tom just made a cold call sales pitch about the film he was making and how he would love to have a little bit of jazz music in it.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyle, probably being the diplomat that he is, just kind of smiled and said, "Well, send me the footage," and just to placate Tom. And then Tom did send him the footage, and Kyle was so impressed with what he saw that he said that I don't want to do just a song. I want to do the whole soundtrack.
Which I think is great. I really, really enjoyed the work and the music in it. I think
Yeah,
it's very class, man.
it is, and I really hate music in movies generally, because it's really artificial. It's not there basically to really tell the story. It's there to sell a soundtrack, or to, in an
Enhanced
artificial way.
scenes or something like.
Yeah, what the director or the actors couldn't communicate, then they have to pipe in someone else to do that. And I like silence in films. I like to hear, like, one of the best movies ever was Tender Mercy, Robert Duvall. And he plays that. I think it's like a Waylon Jennings or Merle Haggard type country singer
Mm-hmm.
in Texas. And when he's walking outside of these bars and just walking through the terrain, I mean, the microphone must be down by his feet. You can feel that earth. You can sense that
Mm-hmm.
earth that he's walking on, and the dust and the environment. you know, and if it were like leaving Las Vegas, they would have piped in Sting's voice at a great moment. You could have your own reactions, what's going on. But instead, they're mandating that you interpret this scene in one way. You know,
Right.
there was a great shot leaving Las Vegas where the camera pulls back and just shows the hotel and this desert scape where Nicolas Cage is, you know, slowly committing suicide. And just as I'm starting to think about the solitude, the loneliness, the despair that's going on, Sting's voice starts, you know, like invading my head. And I can't think of anything else but Sting's voice, which I like, but I
Yeah,
kind of
right.
want
Right.
you're going to have a hard time getting a simple response from me because,
No, that's great, man. I appreciate it. Do you miss modeling?
oh yeah, well, I miss it as a dream, not as reality, um, because my real experience as a model was very frustrating, and you know, but I did learn a lot, uh, but I was never you know financially stable, and it happened in maybe two very important moments in my life when I could have, you know, I came to a crossroads, one after college, which way to go. Chose this path that was much more hilly and rocky and you know, just a tougher route than the other path. And then in my 40s, when I began again, you know, it was, you know, it made a lot of sense to me economically. I thought I had a great look. I chiseled down and got great weight, good physique, and had no problem getting agencies, unlike I did in my 20s. When I was in my 40s, I had no problem getting agencies to represent me, and they all were very optimistic. But basically, one by one, they all started to fire me because I never made any money. So, oh well.
When did you transform from being the subject to being behind the lens?
Well, I was. It was a very specific moment that I thought that I'd like to pursue photography, and I was modeling of all places in Athens. I was with a fellow mature model, and we were in the old Athens Olympic Stadium, and he said, you know, we don't need to hire people to do our test shots. We know enough about the business and basic operation of a camera that we could do our own portfolios. And I was like, what? And he shot some pictures. He had a camera, and he showed them to me. I said, well, they look pretty good. And he goes, yeah, now shoot some of me. And I shot some pictures of him, and they looked really bad. And but the bug was in my head at that moment that, you know, it would be a good idea to pursue it.
Mm-hmm.
So 2003, I came back to New York, took a class. I only took a handful of classes, and I remember the very first picture I ever did with a model. Very simple setup, barren room with light coming in through one window, and you know, she was pretty sexy, and I saw in that photo maybe one millionth of a Vermeer painting that I had admired, and I was so just dumbfounded and happy that wow, I could actually do something artistic.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel the film is a well-rounded representation of your life?
Oh yeah, it's it's very odd too because well, when I went into making this film, I knew my goal was to be as 100% open and truthful as possible because I thought that was the only way that you could really make something that wasn't cliche, that was original, that was interesting, that was peculiar, something very specific and dynamic. And so I went into the filming, you know, no holds barred. And so, and all my fears and frustrations are there, and the joys in my life are there, and my ambitions or pursuit of ambitions or you know, for whatever at whatever level of my pursuit, whether it's a high pursuit or a, you know, a stumbling pursuit. Yeah, it's all there. It's really me. And sometimes when I meet people or establishing some kind of a relationship with a girlfriend, say, well, if you really want to get the cliff notes on who I am, watch the film. You know, when I went into this and when we started to promote the film, I mean, there was a huge 3-page profile done on me and my story in the New York Post. You know, Rupert Murdoch, piece of trash, but nonetheless, it revealed a lot. And within 2 days, I got a call from The View, the ABC TV's The View, to appear on it and to talk about this film. And at that time, you know, I really didn't know how to speak about or even think about, well, one, how I defined myself, you know, and in terms of homeless, you know, I never considered myself homeless.
Mm-hmm.
You know, an urban camper is something, a euphemism that I used because, you know, I didn't, you know, homeless, I mean, I had a lot going for me, and I still have a lot going for me. And I just feel that I didn't want to be categorized in this big category of, you know, homelessness, which, you know, I didn't want to be described or identified by where I did not sleep at night. You know, I did everything else that people do to survive and to be successful and to be a productive human being. At the end of the night, I had to sneak onto a rooftop and curl into a sleeping bag and deal with the weather to get some shut-eye. And, you know, so it's like my life wasn't begging for money, wasn't drug issues or mental health issues, which Whoopi Goldberg kind of pointed out to me on The View. And, you know, so it was a big learning curve for me to kind of, you know, how to deal with this movie and the exposure it got. And, you know, and then just like people might say, well, how can you possibly be homeless? We identify people with a change cup in their hand or a shopping cart.
Definite stereotype, yeah.
Right. And then, you know, then it dawned on me. I started to become educated that, you know, 30-40% of the people in the shelters here in New York City have full-time jobs. They just can't support themselves in a place to live.
Wow, I did not know that. Speaking of the weather, though, how did the weather affect you at times? I'm sure it was brutal at times.
Yeah, it was, and there's an irony in that as well. I mean, first of all, I felt like a farmer before radar was invented, always looking up to the sky to see what the weather would be like. Is it time to plant the crops or harvest them, or to, you know, put it off? So, you know, I would always listen to the weather to see how I needed to prepare, and I always kind of dreaded it when it was going to be raining or super cold or, you know, but the worst thing, you know, or super hot, but the one thing I could not deal with were lightning storms, because I was on the rooftop and, you know, dealing with snow, lightning just frightened me.
Oh, I
Now,
can imagine.
the rooftop has an amazing view, and so
That's the East Village, right?
yeah,
Okay.
East Village.
That's where I
And
stayed
so
once when I visited New York. I was in Avenue A.
yeah, I was Avenue B,
Yeah.
and so, and rightly so, the people that lived in the building would often on the rooftop, you know, having a drink, having a cigarette, getting high, all of the above. So I wouldn't know that anyone was on the rooftop until I walked up 6 flights of steps, snuck past my friend's apartment, who didn't know I was sleeping up there, and then cracking open the door and making sure there was no one on the roof, because if there were, I couldn't start any kind of conversation, because then I would maybe give myself away, or and I couldn't get to this kind of secret little plot that I had uh, made my cocoon of tarps in, you know, which is behind a small wall and in front of some equipment. So on the very nice nights, I often had to climb those stairs 2 or 3 times, cold nights, the rainy nights, at least I knew I could get to where my sleeping stuff was, because there wouldn't be people up there enjoying the nice weather.
Once the film was done, um, I guess your friend found out this was going on for so long. What did he say to you?
Yeah, my friend and my mom. Well, my friend, I called him up before the movie premiered at the IFC theater here in Manhattan. And he wasn't home, but I left him a message saying, dude, if you want to meet with me, I want you to come see the film. But if you want to meet with me beforehand and, tell me how you feel about what happened, what I did, one-on-one, I'm open to that. You can excoriate me if you wish. You could, do whatever. And then he called back and said, no hard feelings, man. I just wish you the best with this film and make a lot of money.
Mm.
So he was very generous, and it was very kind of him to take that approach.
Do you feel you were missing anything compared to others' lives?
Yeah, but for me, like, if we're kind of, I want to kind of bring it back to that 6-year period where I was sleeping on the rooftop. My incredibly dull and unproductive sex life was really not a result of me not having a place of my own. Mattered to me a lot when I was in my 40s, because I knew my super productive, super reproductive stage in life was coming to an end. So, I'm now like at the end of my 50s, and it's just like, c'est la vie. It's a shame it was that way, but that's the way I went through life, and it was painful. It hurt, but I got over that. I stopped caring about a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, the way I started to approach life wasn't necessarily like a recipe for success, but maybe just more a recipe for survival. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not frustrated. Yeah, I still try, but it's like the positive power of negative thinking. I don't expect things to work out. They don't, and I don't get hurt.
Mm-hmm. Here, I understand what you're saying there. So you've worked as an actor. How many projects have you done?
Not nearly enough. I got into the Screen Actors Guild by appearing in the first season of Sex and the City. Um, and that was kind of funny because it was just an extra, but it was really glorified, and they make fun of my character, and I'm in a lot of scenes. I played Carlo the Italian playboy, so even Sarah Jessica Parker, when she saw me in the dressing room, said, "Oh, you're playing Carlo today," and she made this C sign. And I was like, "Yeah, and you're Carrie," because I hadn't read the script. And I get to the set, and they do a rehearsal, and I'm the boyfriend of one of Carrie's long-lost Eurotrash girlfriends who meets by chance Carrie in a shoe store where Carrie's credit card won't work anymore. And she comes out of nowhere and says, "Darling, don't worry about paying for those shoes. Carlo will pay for them." And I said, "Who's Carlo?" "It's my boyfriend. He's over there." And I go, "Oh, he's handsome." "Yes, he's handsome. He's fabulously wealthy. He has an enormous ranch in Argentina, gigantic yacht in Monte Carlo, but he has a very tiny penis." And I was like, "What?"
That's why she
So,
gave you that sign.
yeah, they're all doing that. They're doing an inch. And I'm thinking, they're like, "See, yeah." I always thought that would be like that I was destined to become a top actor, because it would make such a great story to tell on one of the late night television shows when my blockbuster film was opening. But so far it hasn't. It's in the film, in film Homme Less, there's a scene where I'm going to the set of an independent film, and I'm rehearsing my lines in the subway and on the platform, and then we
Yeah,
go
I
to
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I put on YouTube, if you search Mark Reay, Markreay, there is the scene how, you see in the movie how I rehearsed it, and you see in the film how it came out. And it's really good. It's a very good scene, and I do some really good acting in it, and it's like 2 minutes long, so it's big scene, and it's beautifully shot, especially the opening.
Alex, are you sure you want to start working for me again?
Yes.
You know, there's a lot easier ways to make money. No matter how safe you play it, it's always risky.
I'm cool with it. Really, Alonzo, I need to make some money.
Listen, I know you're not a kid anymore, but can't you just ask your family for money?
I've been totally cut off. My mom's basically disowned me.
Come on. I want to get my car washed. You should have told me earlier.
I called you as soon as I realized what might be going on.
Did you see them yesterday when you were making your deliveries?
No?
Are you sure?
I'm as sure as I can be, but who knows?
Oh, Christ, Alex, I should never have hired you.
What do you mean?
You can't follow directions. I asked you not to bring me anything here. You're not aware of your surroundings.
I am. How do you think I realized that I was being followed?
Listen, I don't want to see you for at least a few weeks. After that, we'll just play it by ear. But call me in a couple days if you think they're still tailing you.
Hey, I got in touch with you right away.
I hired you because I thought by now you'd be a mature, responsible person. But you couldn't even stay out of trouble. I should have just stuck with my regular crew.
Oh, yeah, like some hipster just out of art school is going to know they're being followed.
They come with way less baggage.
What does that even have to do with anything?
You're in a fog. You're preoccupied, that's the word. You know, sometimes I think you're just mired in the past.
That's not always such a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, less on memories, more in the future is what I say.
You can't understand what's really going on unless you know what happened before.
Ah, well, maybe that'll be useful to you when you write your memoirs.
It has been useful.
And one guy I know in the industry who is kind of like a part-time manager that deals with me, he says, it's a really good scene. And, but yet it has amounted to absolutely no other work or interest. And that's also one of my regrets about the film. You know, it's admired by so many people, and it got such an enormous press. You know, I did an interview with China TV, and they got 5 million hits. Mumford and Sons put their song on top of it because they admired it so much. You know, and I targeted about 50 agents here in New York City with about 6 letters each, and I never even heard back from them. And I have hoped to make the story, not Homeless, but my story, into a feature, developing a screenplay and you know, and get some name actors in it. So it's like it's a viable project because it's been kind of test marketed around the world. I just came back from Japan 2 months ago, where it hit #2 indie film in the country, and so yeah, it's just really frustrating, you know. So it's you know, hopefully it'll turn around. Mm-hmm. If not, you know, I'm gonna maybe start collecting empty tin cans.
Hey, Yumi, can I get a shot for street style? This is the mag that I shoot for. Yeah. Follow your bliss, but be prepared to live your nightmare. I have a portrait that I've taken of Marc Jacobs backstage. How's the wife?
Everywhere else.
On the Men in Black 3, yes. I expect, though, one day I will get caught. That's a picture when I was 22.
Where can people find Homme Less and you via the net? And you were just mentioning also a book. Do you have a photography book?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the best things that came out of the film for me was that I wasn't making much money, and I was touring around to all these film festivals where it was getting incredible press, and I was sitting there all day. And then people from the film festival saying, "We've never seen this before." You know, I was in Madrid and I did 6 interviews in a row and national TV appearance, and it was great. And I love being in Madrid, but I wasn't putting anything in my pocket, and I couldn't even get a per diem out of the producers, you know, so it kind of pissed me off. And then someone had mentioned, you know, I wish we could see more of your photography in the film. So, so I'm very, very happy, very satisfied that I came up with this idea of making a booklet, a magazine, let's say, of the work that I shot while sleeping on the rooftop. And so I put that together, and then I'd sell it as merch after screenings. And we were the closing film at the gala film evening at the Vancouver Film Festival with 500 people in the audience and a huge screen. The film looked great on this huge screen. And I had brought like 30 of these booklets with me, and I had to take addresses and numbers of people because they bought them all. And it was the same thing in Japan, where it was enormous press reaction. I went over there in November for a week to do press, and I negotiated a very good compensation for it, 10 times more than what they were offering the distributor. And
didn't you go twice? Didn't you go like twice, like within 6 months or something, right?
Yeah, within 3 months, because you know the film was really well handled in Japan by a distributor there, and so they brought me over early to do press, and then giving it like a 6 to 8 week lead time for it to come out when the film was premiering. And you know, I did a GQ photo shoot. I was in Elle and Vogue Japan, the Wired ID, Numero magazine, also a national TV interview, and so it was just an enormous reaction. So, you know, and then I went back in January, the 26th of January, for the film premiere. And when I exited the arrival area with my bags on a cart, I walked down looking for the distributor, and I didn't see her. I figured, oh, she's a little bit late. I'm sure she's coming, but I wanted to check maybe, so I was pushing my cart around. And all of a sudden, this girl said to me, "Homme Less, Mark." And I was like, and she had a pen and a pad in her hand, and by her side were two photographers. And I was thinking, Christ, this film is going to really be huge. This press is really paying off. And then she wanted my autograph and pictures. And then the next thing you know, there were a swarm of people, small Japanese people around me. And I was like on cloud nine. But I'm looking around. I was like, where's the distributor? She paid these people to be here, I'm sure. But she didn't. And, you know, my head is swelling and I'm signing away. And I asked the girls, well, how did you even know I was coming tonight? And she goes, well, we didn't. Ryan Gosling is coming tonight. And we saw you. And I was like, what? So they were all there.
They attacked you once they saw you.
And it was a domino effect. No one else knew who the hell I was. That girl did. And all the other, celebrity fans for Ryan Gosling. So I hope that Ryan Gosling came out of his arrivals lounge and was disappointed that no one was there, and they were all milling about.
It was all for you.
You know, the book that that 20 minutes ago when I began answering your question about the booklet is something that I don't really sell now because it costs too much money to make it, and I don't have enough confidence in thinking that people are going to be, to justify buying or spending that money, investing that money in it. But if anyone comes to New York and wants to fly me to Pittsburgh or anywhere else, I'm available to do photo shoots, and I do a lot of actor headshots. I do some fashion, family events, things like that. MarkReay.net. Yeah, my recent project too is to develop a performance piece that I do incorporating, enough description about the movie, but also life since the movie, because there's been a lot of interesting things that happened since the film premiered. Dealing with, with my mother finding out about my life story by watching TV, The View. I didn't think she watched that television show, and that's how she found out about it. I never told her about my experience, and then just all like it's really uncomfortable in a way when you're in a theater and people have just spent 87 minutes, whatever, like really getting inside my head. And then the lights go up and I stand before them, not knowing anyone in the audience, but they all know me very, very intimately. And if there's like a reception afterwards, people are always coming up to me or looking at me. And I just feel it's really awkward. So that it was shocking at first, and that first time that happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mark, I think that's going to about wrap it up for us on this one. I really appreciate your time and coming on the show, man. Totally.
Well, I appreciate your interest, and I checked my Facebook messages. It's almost a year ago that you contacted me.
Wow.
The first message I have was from May 2016, and then my response to you was, "I'm sorry it took me so long to get back to you." So you might have written months prior, but I didn't even know like this message requests from people you don't know was even a part of Facebook. So I opened it one day.
It was buried.
Yeah, but I really appreciate your interest, and if anyone wants to. They can get in touch with me on Facebook, Mark Reay, or even send an email. And because it's one thing that's been really gratifying is the amount of people who open up, themselves up and reveal some of their stories to me, or give me some praise because it helped encourage them in life, or even Tom and myself, because it's definitely a joint project. But yeah, so I'm open to that, and I want to create a mailing list for my other ideas. So say hello.
Definitely, definitely. What is your email address, Mark?
Oh, so it's my name.
So
I
it's
guess
Mark,
you'll see it somewhere.
MarkReay at.
EY 66 though. That's the.
Mark Reay 66
at Yahoo.
At yahoo.com.
66. The fictitious year of my birth. So.
Well, thank you so much, and I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Right on.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you for watching Arts and Music. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email us at artsandmusicpgh@yahoo.com. And until next time, peace.